I want to use for something today. Don't you hear him calling you? Don't you hear him calling you? Yeah, push it. Don't you hear him calling you? It's taking a sense of over and say, hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. And the answer would come back and sound like Jesus. Call it, y'all better hush. Don't you hear him? Let me help y'all out. Deaconess, y'all have a seat. Y'all can't control God. Just sit down. You let her give her breakthrough. Don't you try to stand that fire. Don't let God do what he's doing. Amen. Just step back and let God work it out. Amen. There's some other folk in here that need a shot that they're too ashamed. There's some other folk that need a breakthrough but too ashamed to open their mouth. That's why the walls are still up in their life. Now pushing your ways forever. Don't you hear him calling you? I want to holler at my young people for a minute. Can I holler at y'all for a minute? You ain't gonna like me, I already know. But I need to holler at you. Because I can remember growing up in a different era than which our children are growing up today. I don't feel like I'm too far removed from this present younger generation, but something has happened between our parents and now that we're parents. Growing up, there was something I had no choice in doing or not doing. I had to do some things. I had no choice when I was going to take out the garbage. I didn't need to be reminded or asked to take out the garbage. It was my responsibility, and if I had to be reminded, woe is me. I can remember growing up, and I didn't get asked whether I was going to church or not on Sunday. But whether who I was going to church with was the question that I needed to answer. We live in a disposition of time now where we ask our children whether they're going to church or not. And we ask them to take out the garbage if it's not too much trouble for them while they sit in your house, burn up your electricity, playing video games that you bought them. And you got to ask them to take out garbage and make up a bed and they don't pay no bills. I'm sorry, young people. I told y'all wasn't going to like me, but I'm going to holler at y'all in a minute. Y'all stick with me. No, I'm not giving y'all in too much trouble. I pray. Listen, y'all holler at me. I didn't get asked any of those things. I took out the garbage because as long as you lived under my mama's roof, you were going to follow my mama's rules. And if you wanted to get out and act like you was leaving, you can take everything that belongs to you. But you got to remember them clothes you got on your back. They ain't yours. Mama bought them. So when you get ready to leave, you go out with what you came in with. Some parents act like we are living with our children rather than they living with us. I can never imagine talking back to my mother or my grandmother. I could not imagine answer them without saying yes ma'am or yes sir. Things are different now. I know young people. I ain't saying yes ma'am, I know. But I can remember being sent outside to go get a switch. I got any folk ever had to go get a switch? These young folk don't even know what a switch is. I think something killed all them switch trees. I can't find a switch tree nowhere. We need to replant some switch trees. I don't know the name of that bush, but we need to go get some more of them and plant them all over East Oakland and all over West Oakland. And when our children act like they stuck on stupid, go outside and get a switch. And if you come back in there with a little switch, my mama know how to braid them together and leave the leaves on the top of it so when it hits your leg, it'll sting. And she wasn't afraid to send you to school with welts on your leg. Even now, as a grown man, I could not imagine talking back to my mother. Stephanie and Deanna and Stephen, they laugh at me now. Because when I call my mother and I talk to her and I say, Jody Macaroni. But it's not a term of disrespect. It's a term of endearment. And they think it's funny. They say, what's grandma's name, Jody Macaroni? I said, that'll get you hurt. That's grandma. Even now, every once in a while, Deanna, at 5 years old, get the feeling of 5-year-old oats and wants to call me Steve. I mean, Daddy, because she sees the look on my face like I'm crazy. And we just live in a different time now. My respect for my mother has not changed, nor will it ever change. I also remember growing up that our parents didn't have to call us 5 times. They only had to call us once. We could be in a room and they'd be in another room and they would call us and you better answer and be on your way all at the same time. I hear children today answering, huh? What you want? In a minute. I could never imagine answering my parents this way. There were times when they would call us and not say a word. They just want you to come and see what they want. There may have even been times when you were watching TV, enthralled in your show, and they called you. And if you took too long answering them, their call would get louder and more urgent. And when you answered them, they would